Ever since she was born, Yun has had the ability to see the red lines that connect people who have had close relationships. When she was little, she didn't understand what those lines meant, but she knew she was the only one who could see them. Eventually, as she matured, Yun understood what those lines meant and drew pictures to represent what she saw. One day, through her drawings, her mother discovered that her father was cheating on her with her aunt and decided to attack him with a knife. After the loss of her father, Yun discovered that her gift was actually a curse, and she decided to isolate herself to prevent other people from getting hurt. By the time she reached adulthood, she was deeply depressed and decided to end it all. However, no matter how many times or ways she tried to end it, she never managed to complete her plan. Apparently, as well as seeing red threads, Yun was also immortal. So, since she would have to live with that burden, she dedicated her life to finding out why those lines had appeared. The curiosity to know who created those threads and who else can see them pushed Yun to start an investigation, because with those answers, perhaps she would be able to break her curse. One day, Yun receives a visit from a woman who lives in the building across the street, but she decides not to answer the door. After ringing the doorbell several times and being ignored, Yun leaves, but leaves a bag of fruit as a gift for her neighbor. After several years of eating canned peaches, Yun delights in devouring fresh fruit and realizes the pleasures she is missing out on by choosing to imprison herself indoors. That day, while climbing the stairs to the school terrace, Son is attacked by a group of girls, and instead of helping her out, Hai knocks her classmate down with a kick. Hai then drags Son by the hair and threatens to throw her off the building if the girl reports to the principals that she is being harassed by her classmates. Meanwhile, her uncle, who is a policeman, is investigating the case of a 29-year-old woman who was found lifeless in her room. In the evening, Yun discovers that her neighbor has left more fruit for her, and while reading the note left by Yun, she finds out about the case from the news. The reporter reports that the victim was found with marks on her neck in her apartment, and according to the police, there are clear signs of a break-in. While watching the TV, Yun spots a motorcyclist approaching the building and notices that he only has a red line on his head. Hours later, she hears a motorcycle noise again, and when she looks out the window, Yun sees that same guy breaking into the building where Yun lives. Concerned for her safety, she calls the police to report the break-in, but soon discovers that Yun is the person the biker is connected to. When she sees them hugging, Yun is surprised and hangs up the phone, as she is totally confused and lost in her own thoughts. The next day, after a long night at work, Han comes home to find that his niece hasn't gone to school. When he sees the injured girl, the detective discovers that she has been attacked, but Son refuses to give any details of what happened. While out on the balcony for a breather, Han spots Yun's window and wonders why the panes are covered in cardboard. When he learns that the police station received a call the night before from someone who lives in that apartment, the detective decides to go there and ring the doorbell. Through the peephole, Yun sees the hundreds of lines above the man's head, but decides to open the door to explain herself. After explaining her mistake, the young woman closes the door and Han leaves. That evening, over dinner, he discovers that the victim who was found lifeless in her apartment had an ex-boyfriend who lives in the same building as Yun. Convinced that the man might be involved in the case, Dong decides to break into his apartment in the early hours of the morning, and with the help of a flashlight, finds a storage room full of suspicious items. At that moment, Dong takes out his cell phone and calls the detective, but ends up being attacked by Jung, who uses a metal bar to hit him. Seeing the man approaching, Dong tries to dodge, but ends up being hit on the head and faints. When he realizes that his friend is in trouble, Han hits the gas and drives to the building. After tying up the policeman, Jung puts on his helmet and walks to the building across the street. Seeing him, Yun again has the feeling that her neighbor is in danger, so he grabs a kitchen knife and goes after the biker. However, as she leaves the building, the young woman begins to suffer a panic attack and faints. When she opens the door, Yun is happy to see her boyfriend, but soon notices that he has a different look on his face and the man grabs her neck. Suddenly, Yun appears, but she is paralyzed with fear and can't react. At that moment, the criminal takes the knife from her hand and attacks the young woman. Seeing her neighbor injured, Yun strikes the criminal and tries to help Yun, but Jung attacks her again. Just then, Han parks his car next to the building and enters Yun's apartment, having seen the door open. Looking out of the window, he draws his gun to shoot the man, and just as the man is about to attack Yun once more, the detective pulls the trigger. Seconds before he loses his life, he sees the line above his head disappear and begins to smile. Minutes later, the ambulance appears and Yun is taken to hospital. After rescuing his friend, Han goes to talk to Yun and returns the sunglasses to her. Suddenly, Son appears and the detective discovers that Yun and his niece know each other. According to Son, They were classmates in elementary school until Yun was abandoned by her mother shortly after her father perished. After using her gifts to save someone's life, the young woman comes to see red lines differently and decides to accept her fate. Hours later, as the sun is about to rise, Yun receives a message from an unknown number and discovers that there is another person with the same ability. The next day, when she arrives at school, Sohn discovers that Hai has opened her locker and found a letter she received. Being humiliated in front of her whole class, Sohn attacks the student and tries to get her letter back, but Hai knocks her down and starts hitting her. When she enters the classroom and sees the two students fighting, the teacher defends Sohn and allows her to go home early. While investigating Jung's apartment to find out why he attacked his own girlfriend, Han finds the storage room where he kept the suspicious items and realizes that the walls are completely covered in red line drawings. When he gets home, Sohn puts on the glasses she found at school and starts to see a wire on the top of her head. When she looks at her uncle while wearing the glasses, she sees hundreds of lines and screams in despair. Surprised by her new discovery, the girl walks down the street while looking at people and trying to understand what those red lines mean. During her observation, Sohn notices that some wires are connected and wonders what the link is between those people. After a few hours, the young girl finally figures out what those lines mean and goes to school feeling confident. When she gets there, she discovers that her teacher is one of the few people in that school who has never had a relationship, while at the same time she discovers that Hai has had countless, connecting the red wires in her head even with teachers. That day, teacher Gyu Jin introduces the students to her new classmate called Yun, and Hai immediately starts making fun of her. Concerned about his niece's behavior lately, Han decides to go to the school where she studies to talk to the teacher. After collecting some information about his niece, the detective asks if Gyu Jin knew a guy called Jung, as he was a math teacher at that school until the previous year. When she finds out that her former colleague was a criminal, Miss Gyu Jin is surprised, and when questioned, she says that Jung didn't usually wear glasses. On the terrace, when she is attacked again by Hai and her gang, Sohn is about to use her trump card, but is interrupted by Yun's arrival. In an attempt to defend her classmate, Yun starts a confrontation with Hai and threatens to throw herself off the terrace along with her if the girl doesn't promise to leave them alone. After almost losing her life, the student decides to leave and Sohn orders Yun not to get involved in her affairs again. That night, Sohn follows Hai in an attempt to gather evidence about her involvement with the teacher and manages to catch the two of them entering a hotel. Upon receiving the photo, Hai says that if the image is leaked, only the teacher will be punished, as the girl is still underage. After reading this message, Sohn begins to think of another strategy and sends the image directly to the teacher asking for 20 million won in cash. Sohn's aim is to use the money to move to another city, as she doesn't want to live with her uncle anymore, let alone attend the same school. When she accompanies her to the bathroom, Yun notices that her friend is wearing new glasses and soon realizes that she can see the red lines while wearing them. Surprised, Sohn asks a few questions to confirm that Yun is also able to see those lines and reveals that she found those glasses by chance at school. According to Yun, Jung was wearing those glasses when he lost his life, which indicates that the object could be dangerous. Even after hearing this, Sohn chooses to continue taking advantage of her new ability, as this is her best chance of getting revenge on the people who were persecuting her. That night, Sohn is at her new boyfriend's house when she receives a message from her teacher, asking her to meet him on the school roof at midnight to collect the money. What the girl doesn't realize is that Hai was in one of the toilet cubicles when Sohn and Yun were talking about the red lines, so she knows about the power of the glasses. So Hai follows the young woman to the arcade, and while Sohn is taking pictures with her boyfriend, the student steals the glasses from her bag. When she realizes that her glasses have disappeared, Sohn despairs and goes back to look for them, but can't find them anywhere. Furious, the girl calls Yun and accuses her of stealing her glasses, but still decides to go to school to meet her teacher. However, when she gets there, Sohn discovers that he lied about getting the money and only lured the girl to try to convince her to keep their affair a secret. If the photo spreads, the teacher will not only lose his job, but also his wife and children. However, Sohn insists on receiving the 20 million as payment. During the conversation, the man receives a message from his wife and discovers that she has already received the photo. Furious, he pushes Sohn off the cliff, believing that she was responsible for destroying his marriage. When she arrives at school looking for her friend, Yun sees the girl fall to the ground and discovers that Sohn has had a serious accident. Terrified, the young woman calls the ambulance and accompanies Sohn to hospital, but the doctors are unable to revive her. When he finds out that his niece is in hospital, Han is deeply saddened and blames himself, believing that she tried to put an end to everything, but Yun assures him that Sohn was pushed by someone. The next day, when he arrives at school, teacher Kim is asked about his wedding date and informs him that his engagement has been called off. Now that he has separated from his fiancée, Kim moves in with his sister and brings a stuffed rabbit as a present for his niece. The man says he's only staying for a week, as he plans to move to Canada in a few days. That day, when she arrives at school, Yun goes up to the terrace, where she meets Kyung Jin. Despite not being close to Yun, the girl shows an interest in finding out who pushed her, as she is obsessed with all kinds of investigations. During the break, Professor Kim finds a pair of glasses on his desk, and after trying them on, he too begins to see the red lines. Suddenly, Han enters the room and asks permission to talk to Miss Gyu Jin. Believing the girl to have jumped off the cliff, the teacher blames herself for not realizing that she was experiencing psychological problems, but the detective claims that his niece was pushed. He then asks about Hai's whereabouts, as he learned that she was stalking Son, but the teacher reveals that the girl didn't show up at school that day, which makes everything even more suspicious. In an attempt to gather evidence about the case, Han decides to interrogate Son's boyfriend, and Ji-won claims that after those photos were taken, the girl went out desperately looking for her glasses. Watching the footage from the store's security cameras, the detective sees the exact moment when Hai grabs his niece's bag and steals the glasses inside. Later, during dinner, Kim wears his new glasses and notices that his brother-in-law has a lot of red hair above his head. When asked about the end of his engagement, the teacher reveals that one day, when he came home from work, he found his wife in bed with his friend. Jung and his brother-in-law then go out to talk, and Kim discovers that he is having an affair with a resident of the building. When they are both going back up to the apartment, Kim presses the button for the 4th floor, and as soon as the door opens, the red line points to the apartment where Jung's mistress lives. At this point, he tries to get out of the elevator, but is pulled back to the 10th floor. The next day, when he arrives home with his sister and niece, Kim finds a box that has been sent to the resident of 401 and decides to go downstairs to deliver it personally, with the aim of finding out who his brother-in-law's secret relationship is. A few days later, the photo of Hai with the teacher spreads throughout the school, and both students and teachers are shocked by the news. After losing the most important things in his life, teacher Seong Jin is consumed by a sense of guilt and shame, so he decides to put an end to everything. After visiting the crime scene, Han seeks out Yun at school and asks her if she knows why her niece returned to school on the night of the tragedy. At this point, the young woman asks the detective to find Son's glasses, as this will help him understand what happened that night. Meanwhile, Kim is following Jung and finds him in a high-end restaurant with his neighbor from 401. Determined to unmask him, the teacher calls his brother-in-law and asks where he is, but Jung lies and says he's not in Seoul. After proving that his brother-in-law is a compulsive liar, Kim returns home and, hours later, shows up at the hotel where Jung is staying with his mistress. When he is discovered, the man tries to explain himself in order to convince his brother-in-law to keep the affair a secret until he has time to talk to Ryong. The next day, Kim packs his bags to leave and says goodbye to his sister, as he doesn't know when he'll get the chance to see her again. While he's getting his things together at work, the teacher receives a message and discovers that his sister has crashed into a neighbor's car. After being informed of the betrayal, Ryong takes his car and hits Chae-rin's vehicle several times, who is extremely frightened by the attack. While Kim is trying to calm his sister down, Jung arrives on the scene, and instead of taking his wife's side, he rushes over to take in his mistress. Furious at this attitude, Kim strikes his brother-in-law, but his sister stops the attack. As soon as the couple leave, Ryong reveals the truth to his brother. The woman tells him that she is actually his mistress, as Jung is married to Chae-rin. After Kim found out, he decided to end his affair with Ryong, and the woman freaked out. After finding his niece's diary, Han discovers that the glasses she was wearing allow her to see something that no one else sees, so he decides to interrogate Yun to find out what those drawings mean. Upon hearing her explanation of the meaning of those red lines, the detective says that the story is absurd, but he doesn't think Yun is lying. That weekend, the young woman gets a job as a receptionist at the Maison Hotel and spends the whole night at the front desk while Detective Han and Dong gather all the information they have collected so far to try and find out who pushed Son off the terrace. By connecting the photo of everyone involved into a single mural, they come to the conclusion that Professor Seong Jin put an end to everything because of his guilt at having pushed the girl. On Sunday, Yun is visited by two friends from school, who have decided to join her at work. When she sees one of the clients take the key and go up to her room, Kyung Jin recognizes her and says that she works in the school's administration department. After spending a few hours alone in her room, Mei Sung returns home and watches the city with her glasses to see the millions of red lines floating in the sky. Upon returning home, Yun turns on the TV and discovers that a new victim was eliminated the night before. The perpetrator was arrested near the scene and confessed everything he had done with a smile on his face. On seeing the images of the criminal, Yun notices that he is wearing a pair of glasses identical to Son's and realizes that there are other glasses that give their wearers the ability to see the S lines. On Monday, at the end of class, Yin approaches Yun and invites her to visit his swimming school. He remembers that she said she liked empty places and takes the opportunity to spend some time alone with her. Ever since he saw Yun for the first time, Yin began to take an interest in her, and thanks to Kyung Jin, he found an opportunity to get close to the girl. Even without knowing anything, Yun feels the urge to jump into the water and Yin quickly gets into the pool to prevent her from drowning. Then, while waiting for their uniforms to dry, they eat instant noodles and Yun tells him about her ability to see red lines on people's heads. The young woman reveals that, just like her, Yin and Kyung Jin don't have any red threads, and even though he doesn't understand what these lines mean, the young man says he believes her. The following weekend, once again, Mei Sung books room 206 at the Maison Hotel, and while she's cleaning the corridors, Yun hears her shouting at herself while looking in the mirror, as if she's staging something to tell someone. A few months ago, in that same room, the woman found the glasses that gave her the power to see the S lines, and since then her hobby has become complete. Mei Sung's favorite hobby is watching the customers in room 205 through a hole in the wall, but when she sees Mr. Lee on the other side, she is surprised. Ever since she first saw the music teacher, Mei Sung has fallen in love with him, and when she finds out that the man is meeting Kaylin, she collapses. At that moment, she goes down to reception and says she wants to extend her stay until the next day. Then, when Kaylin shows up to meet Lee once again, Mei Sung hits her with a fire extinguisher and puts on the woman's clothes to go meet the music teacher. Seeing his co-worker in his room, Lee wonders what's going on and is even more confused when she starts reciting the phrases she's practiced in front of the mirror. Then, when Mei Sung comes towards him, Lee pushes her away and gets up to leave, but ends up fainting before he reaches the door. After taking the teacher back to bed, Mei Sung reveals that she put sleeping pills in his water and hugs Lee while she waits for him to wake up. Just then, however, the woman sees a bloodstain spreading across the pillow and panics, because the last thing she wanted to do was end the life of the man she had secretly wanted all this time. So, when the red thread disappears, Mei Sung feels guilty, and ends up using a stapler to hit her own body several times. Hours later, Kaylin manages to get out of her room and finds Yun, who helps her free herself from her bonds. She then enters room 205 and sees Professor Lee's body. When he arrives at the scene, Han finds Mei Sung's body and looks for her glasses in every corner of the room, but can't find them. When talking to the detective, Yun says that Mei Sung always wore a pair of glasses when she was at work and reveals that this object messes with the wearer's mind. According to her, Mei Sung only had a red line that didn't connect to Lee, so it's impossible to know what motivated the attack. When night falls and all the police have left, Detective Han returns to the hotel and decides to empty the bathtub where Mei Sung's body was found. In doing so, he finds the glasses the woman was wearing and puts them on his face. The detective then looks in the mirror and can see for himself the red lines that Yun was talking about. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.